My name is Chloe, and I'm 30 years old. After spending what felt like an eternity in a hospital bed, fighting a rare condition, I was discharged a day ahead of schedule. My first instinct was to surprise my husband, Liam, who is 27, but as it turned out, the real surprise was waiting for me. I walked into our bedroom to find him hopelessly entangled in our bed sheets with his coworker, Jessica. But instead of screaming, an unnatural sense of peace washed over me. I just smiled, turned around, and walked away without saying a single word. Before I get into the rest of my story, please drop a comment to let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you want to see how this journey of betrayal and unexpected discovery ends, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Liam and I first crossed paths 4 years ago at a major pharmaceutical conference in Chicago. At the time, I was a pharma sales rep for Apex Pharma, a position I had earned through sheer grit and a track record of consistent success. My coworkers liked to joke that I had a talent for selling anything to anyone, but the reality was simpler. I truly believed in the products and in helping medical professionals find the best solutions for their patients. The conference hall was a chaotic sea of industry experts when I, quite literally, collided with Liam as I reached for a coffee. He was a rising star in marketing at a rival company, armed with a killer smile and an easy confidence that pulled me in right away. Liam had this incredible knack for making you feel like the center of the universe when he spoke to you. He was driven, brilliant, and had a sharp sense of humor that was a surprise, given his polished corporate exterior. "Well, I guess I should thank the coffee gods for this little accident," he'd said, after helping me dab at the small spill on my blazer. We swapped business cards, and before the day was over, he'd already sent a text asking if I was free for dinner. Our romance felt like a whirlwind. We were together for exactly 1 year before he proposed. It happened during a weekend getaway to Lake Geneva. He had orchestrated the entire moment flawlessly, dropping to one knee just as the sun was melting into the water. I was a mess of tears, but I managed to say yes. 6 months later, we had a beautiful, intimate wedding with only our closest friends and family. We settled into our dream home in a quiet suburban enclave, a lovely 4-bedroom house with a garden that became my weekend sanctuary. Liam kept ascending the corporate ladder, and I was expanding my sales territory at Apex. We'd started talking about kids, maybe in a year or two after we'd checked off a few more destinations from our travel list. We dreamed of exploring Paris, Tokyo, and Italy's Amalfi Coast. By all accounts, our life was perfect. We threw dinner parties, became members at the local tennis club, and split holidays between our two families. I had never felt a deeper sense of happiness, and Liam seemed just as fulfilled by the life we were building together. The first hint that something was wrong emerged about 6 months ago. I began to feel an overwhelming fatigue. My joints ached constantly, and strange rashes started appearing on my skin. Initially, I brushed it off as burnout from my demanding job, or maybe a new allergy. But then the fever started, and I began losing weight at an alarming rate. It was Liam who insisted I see a specialist. After what felt like an endless cycle of tests and referrals, I was given a diagnosis, a rare autoimmune disorder that would need immediate, aggressive treatment. I remember the doctor explaining the condition, and Liam was right there, squeezing my hand, promising me that we would face this together. In that moment, I felt an immense wave of gratitude, believing that his support was the one thing that would make this terrifying journey manageable. In the beginning, Liam was the perfect, devoted husband. He chauffeured me to all my appointments, spent hours online researching my condition, and even found support groups for spouses of people with chronic illnesses. He would prepare special meals for me on days I had no appetite and hold me through long nights when the pain was too intense for sleep. But as the weeks bled into months, I started to notice subtle shifts. Liam began staying at the office later and later, always citing huge projects that required his full attention. Our conversations grew shorter, stripped of their usual intimacy. When we did talk, the subject was almost always my treatment schedule or the side effects of my medication, and rarely about his day or the future we had once planned so enthusiastically. The financial pressure was also becoming a tangible weight. Even with our good insurance, the out-of-pocket expenses for specialists and experimental therapies were piling up. I was forced to cut back my hours at work, which meant my commission-based salary took a massive hit. Liam never complained directly about the money, but I could see the worry etched into his face when he thought I wasn't looking. I tried to keep our connection alive, suggesting we watch a movie or just talk like we used to. Sometimes Liam would participate, but more often than not, he'd cite total exhaustion from work or make an excuse to go out with his colleagues to decompress. I told myself I understood his need for an escape, for a slice of normalcy away from our home, which had started to feel more like a clinic. At least, that's what I convinced myself to believe. 3 weeks ago, my condition took a sharp turn for the worse. My doctor urged me to check into the hospital immediately for intensive monitoring and treatment. Liam seemed almost relieved as he dropped me off, promising he would visit every single day. For the first few days, he was true to his word, bringing me my favorite novels and clean pajamas. But by the second week, his visits grew infrequent and brief. He always had a believable excuse, a sudden crisis at work, a looming deadline for a major campaign, or his parents needing help with something urgent. I did my best not to feel abandoned as I lay in that sterile hospital bed, watching other patients enjoy long visits from family who brought homemade food and fresh flowers. "Marketing is just insane right now, Chloe," he would say during his fleeting appearances. "The Peterson campaign is a mess, and the VP is on my case every second." I would nod, trying my best to be understanding, while ignoring the way his eyes were constantly glued to his phone during our short visits, or the palpable relief on his face when visiting hours were over. I just kept telling myself that once I was home, everything would get better. Once we were back in our routine, away from the sterile environment of the hospital, Liam would remember why he fell in love with me. He would see me as his wife again, not just his patient. I clung to that hope through so many lonely nights, planning all the small ways we could reconnect once I was finally discharged. I had no idea that Liam had already found his own method for coping with our new reality, a method that was about to demolish the very foundation of trust our marriage was built on. The morning I was discharged from the hospital began like any other. My vitals were checked, blood was drawn, and I waited for Dr. Ramsey to begin his rounds. When he finally walked in, clipboard in hand, I was expecting the usual update and a confirmation that I would likely be going home the next day. "Chloe, I have some great news," he said, a genuine smile on his face. "Your latest blood work shows a significant improvement. Your inflammation markers have dropped, and your kidney function has stabilized. I see no reason to keep you here another night. I think we can send you home today." I sat up, a jolt of pure excitement running through me. "Really? I can go home today?" "Absolutely," he confirmed. "We'll need to make some adjustments to your medication, and you'll have to continue outpatient treatments twice a week. But medically, there's no reason to keep you." A kind nurse named Maria helped me pack my things while going over my discharge papers. As she was detailing my new medication schedule, a thought struck me. "I should call Liam and let him know I'm coming home early," I said, reaching for my phone. Maria smiled. "Or you could surprise him." My husband loves it when I get home unexpectedly. The idea was instantly appealing. Liam had seemed so distant and weighed down lately. Maybe a surprise homecoming would be just the thing to shatter the emotional barrier that had grown between us. I could picture the look of relief on his face, maybe even happy tears. We could order from our favorite Thai place, open a good bottle of wine, and begin the work of rebuilding what my illness had chipped away at. You know what? That's a great idea. "I think I will surprise him," I decided, putting my phone back in my bag. I called for a rideshare instead of asking Liam for a lift. The driver was a friendly, talkative man who asked about my hospital stay and congratulated me on my recovery. I offered vague replies, my mind already leaping ahead to the moment I'd walk through our front door. As the car turned onto our street, I saw an unfamiliar silver sedan parked on the curb behind Liam's black SUV. A visitor. Perhaps his mother had dropped by, though she drove a different car. Maybe a colleague had stopped by to drop off some paperwork. I paid the driver and made my way up the walkway, my body still feeling weak from the long hospital stay. I used my key, slipping inside as quietly as I could, planning to call out to him once I was in the hall, but as the door clicked shut behind me, I heard it. Laughter. It was a woman's laugh, immediately followed by Liam's very distinct chuckle. My heart started to pound, but I forced myself to stay calm. There could be a perfectly innocent explanation. Maybe Liam was working from home and celebrating a project's success with a coworker. I set my bag down in the entryway and moved silently through the living room, heading toward the staircase. Everything looked just as I had left it. Our wedding portrait was still in its place of honor on the mantel. My collection of antique glass bottles was still neatly arranged on the bookshelf. Nothing seemed wrong until I heard the sounds coming from upstairs, from our bedroom. My feet carried me up the stairs, almost on autopilot, as if some primal part of my brain needed to see what my heart was already screaming at me. The bedroom door was ajar, and through that small gap I saw them, Liam and Jessica from his marketing department, in our bed. The same bed where I had spent countless sleepless nights in agony. The bed where Liam had once held me close and promised we would get through anything, forever. Jessica. Of course. It all clicked into place. The tall, confident brunette who always made a point of touching Liam's arm when she laughed at his jokes during company events. The woman who had given me a painfully insincere hug at our last holiday party. Asking about my health with a practiced look of concern but with ice-cold eyes. Time seemed to grind to a halt as I stood there, frozen in the doorway. My mind registered bizarre, minute details with a startling clarity. The framed photo of our wedding day on the nightstand had been turned face down. My pillow was gone from the bed, tossed carelessly into a corner on the floor, and Liam's wedding band was sitting in the small ceramic dish I had bought him for our anniversary. But the most shocking thing of all was my own reaction. There was no primal scream building in my chest, no sudden urge to burst into the room and unleash my fury. Instead, a profound and eerie calm settled over me, as if I were watching a scene from a movie about someone else's tragic life. In that single crystal-clear moment, I saw the unvarnished truth of my marriage. All the pieces fit together perfectly. The late nights at the office, the distracted, hollow conversations, the growing emotional chasm between us. I must have stood there for 10 seconds, though it felt like an eternity. Neither of them saw me. They were far too lost in their own world, too certain of their privacy. Without a sound, I backed away from the door and retreated down the stairs, my hospital discharge papers still clutched in my hand. Outside, the cool spring air was a shock against my face. I started walking down our tree-lined street with no destination in mind, my thoughts strangely, unnervingly blank. I should be sobbing, I thought. I should be feeling something. This numbness was almost more terrifying than the pain I knew was coming. I ended up at the local park, the same one where Liam and I used to have picnics on sunny Sunday afternoons. I sat down on a bench that overlooked the small pond and finally pulled out my phone. 3 missed messages from Liam. "Hope your treatment is going well today. Let me know if you need me to bring anything for tomorrow. Can't wait to have you home. Miss you." A laugh, hollow and strange, escaped my lips. He had sent these messages while he was with her, or maybe right after. He was carefully constructing a fictional narrative of the loving, devoted husband, eagerly awaiting his wife's return. How long had this double life been going on? Was it a recent thing, born out of the stress of my illness? Or had there always been secrets, even during what I believed were our happiest days? As I sat on that bench, a cold, strategic silence took hold of me. I would not reply to his messages. I would let him believe I was still safely in my hospital room, completely oblivious to his betrayal. He could have one more night of thinking he had successfully managed his 2 separate lives. Tomorrow would arrive soon enough, and with it, choices I never imagined I would have to face. That evening, I checked into a downtown hotel using a credit card that Liam didn't monitor. The receptionist shot me a look of sympathy when I explained I needed a room despite having no luggage. "Just for tonight," I said, though I had no idea if that was true. The room was sterile and impersonal, with generic art on the walls and a bed that felt far too big for one person. I sat on the edge of it, and finally, the emotions I had been holding back came rushing to the surface. They arrived in waves. First, a hot, searing anger that made my hands tremble as I imagined confronting them. Then came a crushing, suffocating sadness that bent me in half, my tears soaking into the stiff hotel comforter as I mourned the death of the life I thought I had. By the next morning, the emotional storm had passed, leaving a strange sense of clarity in its wake. I remembered something my grandmother once told me years ago, after my grandfather left her for his assistant. Never make a life-altering decision based on a temporary emotion. The wisdom in her words echoed in my mind now. I needed a strategy, not an emotional outburst. I ordered room service and started researching divorce laws in our state on my laptop. I learned about community property, grounds for divorce, and how infidelity could influence a settlement. I took meticulous notes, the pharma sales rep in me treating this crisis like I would any complex new product launch. My next step was to call my best friend, Sophie. I made sure to use the hotel phone, not my cell, just in case Liam had installed some kind of tracking software. "Chloe, where are you?" "Liam called me last night, frantic. 'Looking for you,' she said, her voice laced with concern. 'I need your help,' I said. 'But first, you have to promise me you won't do anything rash until I've explained everything.' After I told her what I had seen, Sophie let loose a torrent of curses about Liam that would have made a pirate blush. 'I'm gonna kill him. I'm literally gonna drive over there right now and tell him what a worthless piece of trash he is,' she fumed. 'No,' I said, my voice firm. 'That is the one thing we are not going to do. I have to be smart about this, Sophie. I need a place to stay for a bit, and I need you to be discreet.' Sophie, a corporate attorney herself, immediately shifted from pure rage to tactical mode. 'You can stay with me for as long as you need, and you need to call Eleanor Vance. She handled my cousin's divorce last year. She's an absolute shark in the courtroom, but she genuinely cares about her clients.' I booked an appointment with Eleanor for that afternoon, deeply grateful that Sophie was willing to drive me. My next task was to understand our financial situation. Using my laptop, I accessed our shared cloud drive where we kept all our financial records. What I discovered left me breathless. Over the past 4 months, Liam had been methodically siphoning small amounts of money from our joint savings into a personal account I had no knowledge of. The amounts were never large enough to raise an alarm, but in total, it added up to nearly $15,000. He had also taken out a new credit card in his name only. The statements showed charges for high-end hotels and lavish restaurant dinners on nights he had claimed to be working late. But the most damning discovery was a series of emails between Liam and a real estate agent about the possibility of listing our house for sale. Liam had stated he would be relocating soon due to personal circumstances and needed to liquidate assets quickly. The timestamp on the email was from just 2 weeks after I had been hospitalized. He had been meticulously planning his exit while I was in a hospital bed, fighting for my health. This collection of evidence painted a picture of a betrayal that was far more calculated than a simple physical affair. I downloaded everything, sending copies to a new private email address and to Sophie for safekeeping. Then, still using the hotel's business center computer, I decided to check Liam's personal email, which he had foolishly set to remember his password on all our shared devices. And there they were. Dozens and dozens of messages between him and Jessica, dating back almost 5 months, starting shortly after my diagnosis. They exchanged sweet nothings, explicit photos, and detailed plans for their future together. I saw messages where Jessica complained about being the other woman, and Liam reassured her that it was only a temporary situation. Once Chloe's health stabilizes, I'll ask for the divorce, he had written 3 weeks prior. She's too fragile right now. The doctor said any extreme stress could trigger a serious relapse. His supposed concern wasn't for my well-being, but for his own public image. He didn't want to be seen as the monster who abandoned his sick wife. He wanted to look like the noble, long-suffering husband who had tried his best before reluctantly ending the marriage. Meanwhile, my own phone had been buzzing non-stop. Liam's panic was clearly escalating with each unanswered call and text. The hospital said you were discharged. Where are you, Chloe? I'm worried sick. Please call me. I went to the hospital, but they said you left yesterday. Are you okay? I've called everyone. His final message revealed the full extent of his fabricated narrative. I was at the hospital all afternoon trying to find you. No one knows where you went. I'm going to file a missing persons report if I don't hear from you in an hour. I had to almost admire the sheer nerve of it. He had manufactured an entire alternate reality where he was the frantic, concerned husband, not the man who had spent the previous afternoon in bed with another woman. I finally sent him a single text. I'm safe. Do not contact me again. Then I switched off my phone. I was ready to meet with the divorce attorney and begin the process of dismantling the life I had built with a man who was unworthy of my trust, my love, or even my anger. For 3 days, I stayed hidden away at Sophie's apartment, carefully plotting my next moves with Eleanor Vance's expert counsel. We documented every piece of evidence, from the financial deceit to the proof of his affair. Eleanor's advice was clear. Do not confront Liam until we have all our legal ducks in a row. The element of surprise is your most powerful weapon right now. The second he knows that you know, he'll start trying to cover his tracks and hide assets. Liam's messages to me had morphed from feigned concern to irritation, and finally, to outright anger. He had, in fact, filed a missing persons report, only to have the police inform him that since I had confirmed I was safe and was a competent adult, their hands were tied. This isn't like you, Chloe, his latest text read. Whatever is going on, we need to talk about it like adults. On the 4th day, I waited until Liam's work calendar showed he had a 2-hour off-site marketing meeting. Then I returned to our house with Sophie and her brother, Ben, for moral support and as witnesses. The house felt both familiar and alien as I walked through rooms that had once been my sanctuary. I went directly to our bedroom. The bed had been stripped, the mattress left bare. Liam had tried to erase the evidence of his infidelity, but in his haste, he'd created an even more glaring sign that something was terribly wrong. I packed with cold efficiency, taking only what was unequivocally mine: my clothes, personal keepsakes, family heirlooms, and my professional files. Eleanor had warned me not to take anything that could be argued as joint property until the divorce proceedings were underway. In Liam's home office, I noticed his desk drawer was slightly ajar. Inside, I found a small bundle of handwritten letters from Jessica, dating back even further than the emails. 6 full months of correspondence, starting just after my first symptoms appeared, even before my official diagnosis. You deserve someone who is whole and healthy, one letter read. Someone who can match your energy and your ambition. I can be that for you. I took photos of the letters but left them where I found them, another piece of evidence for our case. As I was closing the drawer, I heard the front door open. Liam was home, hours ahead of schedule. Chloe? His voice echoed up the stairs, a strange mix of surprise and caution. I walked calmly down the stairs, with Sophie and Ben flanking me like a personal security detail. Liam stood frozen in the entryway, his expression flickering through shock, relief, and then a dawning apprehension as he took in my companions and the suitcase by my side. "What's going on?" he asked, taking a step toward me before Ben subtly shifted, blocking his path. "I think you know exactly what's going on, Liam," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Honey, whatever you think you saw, it was a mistake. A one-time thing," he pleaded, his eyes wide with desperation. "I was stressed out, worried sick about you, and I made a terrible, terrible mistake. We can work through this. We've invested too much in this marriage to just throw it all away." I gave him a faint smile, almost pitying his pathetic attempt at deception. Without saying a word, I took out my phone and played an audio file. The recording I'd made of his voice and Jessica's from his desk, where they were planning their weekend and talking about a future without me. I then showed him screenshots of his emails to the realtor about selling our home. His face hardened. "You're not thinking straight, Chloe. Your medications, they affect your judgment. The doctors warned me you might have paranoid thoughts. This is exactly why I've been afraid to talk to you about anything difficult. You twist everything into some kind of conspiracy. It was a masterful attempt at gaslighting, trying to use my own illness as a weapon against me to make me question my sanity. 6 months ago, that might have worked, but not today. Not with my friends as witnesses and a mountain of evidence in hand. Liam, I have copies of everything," I said quietly. "The bank statements, the emails, the text messages, your conversations with Jessica where you plan your future together, your research into whether my condition would be considered pre-existing, which might get you out of paying for my medical costs after a divorce." His eyes darted nervously between me, Sophie, and Ben. His voice dropped, becoming soft and conciliatory. "Chloe, please. Just send your friends away so we can talk about this privately. There are explanations for all of it. We can still fix this." "There is nothing left to fix," I replied, grabbing the handle of my suitcase. "My attorney will be in contact with you tomorrow with divorce papers. I suggest you find your own lawyer, and quickly." As I started for the door, Liam's entire demeanor shifted. The mask of the remorseful husband dissolved, revealing the cold, calculating man underneath. "No one is going to believe you," he hissed, grabbing my arm. "I've documented every one of your mood swings, every paranoid delusion, every side effect of your medication. I have videos of you forgetting conversations we had hours earlier. Who do you think a judge will believe? The successful executive or his mentally unstable, sick wife?" I gently pulled my arm from his grasp. "I think they'll believe the evidence," I said, "and I think your parents will be especially interested in the text messages where you call them interfering old fools who you can't wait to cut out of your life once you're free of me." His face twisted in a mask of pure rage. "You wouldn't dare." I walked out the door, pausing on the threshold. "I'm already 2 steps ahead of you, Liam." I always was. His desperate pleas followed us all the way to the car, his tactics shifting again, now begging for another chance, promising to go to therapy, claiming Jessica meant nothing to him. I didn't look back as Sophie drove us away from the house that was once the center of my world, a place that now stood for nothing but lies and betrayal. The weeks that followed my confrontation with Liam were a whirlwind of legal meetings, doctor's appointments, and raw emotional processing. I made the guest room at Sophie's apartment my temporary home, incredibly grateful for her unwavering support and her constant reminders to take my medication on schedule. Eleanor Vance filed the divorce papers, citing irreconcilable differences and infidelity, and attached the mountain of evidence we had collected. Liam hired Bradford Wilson, a notoriously aggressive attorney known for dragging out proceedings to exhaust his opponents. Meanwhile, Liam began a calculated campaign to control the narrative among our friends. He spun a tale of a mentally unstable wife, her mind warped by medication, who had fabricated an entire affair to punish him for not being a perfect caregiver. "Chloe's been having these paranoid episodes," he told our mutual friend Daniel, who immediately called me to check in. He said the doctors warned him this could happen, but he never imagined you'd invent a whole affair. His strategy might have been effective if I hadn't already taken Eleanor's advice and shared a few key pieces of evidence with our 5 closest friends. I didn't do it to slander Liam, but to protect myself from his gaslighting. The evidence spoke for itself. 2 weeks after I moved out, I was driving past our old house on my way to an appointment when I saw Jessica's silver sedan parked in the driveway. She hadn't wasted any time moving in. This only confirmed what Sophie's neighbor, who worked in Liam's building, had told us. Jessica was already openly referring to herself as Liam's girlfriend at the office. The most unexpected call came from Liam's mother, Catherine. She'd always been warm towards me, though slightly reserved. "Chloe," she began, her voice cautious, "Liam told us that you left him because you were having delusions from your medication." "What else did he tell you, Catherine?" I asked quietly. "That you imagined he was having an affair, that you hired some ruthless lawyer, and that you're trying to take everything from him after he supported you through your illness." I took a deep breath. "Catherine, I would never ask you to take sides, but I will tell you this. I saw Liam and Jessica in our bed with my own 2 eyes. I have proof of their affair going back 6 months. And right now, Jessica is living in your son's house. You can drive by and see for yourself if you need to." The silence on the other end of the phone was long and heavy. "Oh, Chloe, I am so sorry," she finally whispered, her voice cracking. "His father and I raised him to be better than this. Liam's parents came to visit me the following weekend. They brought me a small photo album they had put together, filled with pictures from my 5 years as a member of their family. It was their quiet way of telling me that I would always matter to them." Before they left, Catherine gave me a tight hug and whispered, "He is going to regret losing you for the rest of his life." As the divorce dragged on, the stress began to take a toll on my health. I had a major flare-up of my condition, sending me back to Dr. Ramsey for new medications and more tests. A painful rash spread across my chest and face. I lost almost 10 pounds in 2 weeks, and the fatigue was so debilitating that on some days, I couldn't even get out of bed. Liam tried to use this to his advantage, filing a motion to be included in my medical decisions since we were still legally married. His lawyer argued that my diminished capacity during these flares meant I couldn't make sound judgments. Eleanor fought back hard, presenting a statement from Dr. Ramsey confirming that while my physical health was compromised, my cognitive abilities were perfectly intact. The judge denied Liam's motion and issued a sharp warning against using my health as a litigation tactic. The corporate world that Liam valued so much also began to turn on him. Someone had tipped off human resources about his relationship with Jessica, who was technically his subordinate. The company had a strict policy against undisclosed relationships within a reporting line, a policy Liam had ignored. Both of them were called into a series of meetings with HR. While I never learned the specifics, Sophie's neighbor reported that Jessica had been transferred to another department in a much lesser role, while Liam received a formal reprimand that made him ineligible for a promotion for at least a year. As Liam's world started to crumble, his attempts to win me back grew more desperate. He sent flowers to Sophie's apartment. He wrote long, rambling emails promising therapy and a renewed commitment. He even ambushed me at one of my doctor's appointments, having somehow gotten my schedule, claiming he just wanted to be there for me. Dr. Ramsey, who was aware of the situation, had security escort Liam out of the building and helped me file paperwork to make my appointment schedule confidential. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more bizarre, an unmarked package arrived at Sophie's, addressed to me. Inside was a USB drive filled with photos and messages documenting affairs Liam had with 2 other women before Jessica, dating all the way back to our 2nd year of marriage. The anonymous note with it was simple: "You deserve the whole truth. He did the same thing to us." I forwarded the new evidence to Eleanor and, after some thought, sent copies to Liam's parents. They deserved to know the full character of the son they were still trying to defend. Catherine's reply was a single sentence: "We love you, Chloe. We are handling this." I later found out they had pulled their offer to help him with a down payment on a new condo. Through it all, I focused on one thing: survival. Getting through each day with my health and my sanity intact. I had lost my husband, my home, and my sense of security. But as I sat in Dr. Ramsey's office 6 months after that fateful day, I had a realization. I hadn't lost myself. I was broken, yes. I was battered by circumstances I couldn't control. But I was still fundamentally Chloe, still fighting, still putting one foot in front of the other, no matter how difficult the step. 6 months into the divorce, I found myself in a place I never could have predicted. Grateful, not for the betrayal, but for the painful journey of self-discovery it had launched. The legal battle was still raging, with Liam's attorney using every delay tactic in the book to drag out the process. But Eleanor was a rock, countering every move with methodical precision. My own focus was on my health. Dr. Ramsey had connected me with a specialist in a neighboring state who was pioneering a new treatment. The results were astounding. My inflammation markers dropped, and the debilitating symptoms began to subside. Your body is having a remarkable response, Dr. Winters told me. Often, emotional stress is a major trigger for autoimmunity. Sometimes, removing a significant stressor, even through a difficult process, can give your body the space it needs to start healing. The irony was not lost on me. In a strange twist, Liam's betrayal may have helped save my life by removing the constant low-grade stress of being in a relationship with someone who had already checked out. During my treatments, I became friends with a nurse named Jasmine. She had a warmth that made even the most unpleasant procedures bearable. My sister has lupus, she told me one day, so I get what it's like to live with an unpredictable illness. Have you ever thought about a support group? I confessed I had avoided them, worried they would just be sessions focused on being sick. Jasmine smiled. There's a group that meets on Thursdays. They talk about living well with a chronic condition, not just surviving it. I reluctantly went to the next meeting. It was a small group of people from all walks of life, led by a psychologist who also had a chronic illness. The focus was on building a fulfilling life, not letting the illness define you. That's where I met David. A former marathon runner, he was now learning to live with rheumatoid arthritis. He had an easy laugh and a perspective on hardship that I connected with immediately. My ex-wife left me 6 months after I was diagnosed, he shared during one meeting. She said she hadn't signed up for a sick husband. It broke me at the time, but looking back, she did me a favor. It's better to find out someone's true character sooner rather than later. David and I started getting coffee after the meetings. We built a friendship on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. Unlike Liam, David never made me feel like my illness was an inconvenience or that I was somehow less of a person because of my physical limitations. I had to make professional changes too. The high-stress, travel-heavy life of a pharma rep was no longer sustainable. I approached my company with a proposal to move into a training and development role, mentoring new reps. To my astonishment, they not only agreed but created a new, partially remote position for me. The reduced stress had an immediate positive impact on my health. While I was carefully rebuilding my life, piece by piece, Liam's was continuing to fall apart. I heard through friends that Jessica had left him for the CFO of a client's company, a much wealthier, more powerful man. The financial strain on Liam was intensifying. His legal fees were mounting, and the housing market had dipped right when he needed to sell our home. His parents, once his safety net, kept their distance. His desperate attempts to reconcile with me only confirmed that his plan B had completely imploded. He sent emails claiming to have had a profound personal awakening through therapy, though Eleanor discovered he had only attended 2 sessions. When those efforts failed, he tried a new tactic, offering to settle the divorce on terms that were shockingly favorable to me. This sudden generosity probably means he's in worse financial shape than we know, Eleanor advised. She was right. Our discovery process revealed he was drowning in credit card debt from funding his lifestyle with Jessica. On top of that, he had received a terrible performance review at work, putting his annual bonus in jeopardy. During this time, I had an unexpected creative breakthrough. I began sketching out ideas for a more intuitive way to present complex medication information to both doctors and patients. What started as notes in a journal turned into a full-blown business concept. I presented it to my company's development team, and their enthusiastic response led to a series of meetings with executives. Ultimately, they offered to acquire my concept, giving me a substantial one-time payment, an ongoing consulting role, and a royalty agreement that would ensure my financial security for years to come. "You've turned personal adversity into professional innovation," my director said when we signed the contracts. The irony was staggering. My greatest professional success was born from the most devastating period of my personal life. As the seasons changed, I found myself feeling genuinely happy for the first time in years. It wasn't the fragile, conditional happiness I had known with Liam, but something deeper and more resilient. My friendship with David had slowly, carefully blossomed into something more. We moved at a gentle pace, respectful of each other's past wounds, building a connection based on honesty. When the final court date for our divorce arrived, I felt no bitterness, only a quiet sense of resolution. The marriage had been over long before I walked in on him and Jessica. All that was left was to make it official and fully step into the new life I was building. 1 year to the day after I discovered Liam's infidelity, I stood on the courthouse steps with Eleanor Vance by my side, the finalized divorce decree in my hand. The process had been long and draining, but in the end, the sheer weight of evidence had left Liam with no room to maneuver. The settlement was fair. More importantly, I retained all rights to my healthcare education platform, which was already generating a significant income. My health had stabilized. I wasn't cured, but my condition was manageable. I had moved into my own charming condo, a bright, airy space that I had filled with things that brought me joy. My friendship with Sophie had become a sisterhood, forged in the fires of this crisis. Liam made one last desperate play during our final court appearance. He showed up looking haggard, his voice trembling as he delivered a dramatic, tear-filled monologue to the judge. "I still love you, Chloe," he declared. "All my mistakes came from a place of fear. I was terrified of losing you, and I was weak." It might have been a convincing performance if I hadn't received screenshots the night before of his active profiles on 3 different dating apps, where he described himself as newly single, never married, no baggage. The judge, who had seen all the evidence, was unimpressed. "Mr. Evans," she said sternly, "this court deals in legal facts, not emotional theater. Let us finalize this decree. My business venture had grown beyond my wildest dreams. I decided to use a portion of the profits to establish a research fund for autoimmune diseases, speaking at a fundraiser with a confidence I wouldn't have recognized in myself a year ago. Sometimes our greatest challenges are the catalysts for our most profound changes," I told the crowd. My relationship with David continued to grow, slowly and organically. "I never thought I'd be grateful for rheumatoid arthritis," he confessed one evening as we watched the sunset from my balcony. "But if I hadn't gotten sick, I never would have met you." So, in a weird way, I've made my peace with it. I knew exactly what he meant. A few weeks after the divorce was final, Liam called. I almost didn't answer, but my curiosity got the better of me. "Chloe," he began, his voice oozing with practiced sincerity. I wanted to say I am truly sorry. I've been doing a lot of soul searching, and I realize now what I threw away. None of them even compare to you." "What did we have, Liam?" I asked, my voice calm. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like we had a relationship that couldn't survive its first real test." "That's not fair," he protested. "I stood by you for months." "While you were planning your exit and sleeping with other women," I pointed out. "That's not standing by someone, Liam. That's just waiting for the most convenient time to leave." His tone hardened. "I made mistakes, Chloe. You're the one who threw away our marriage." I let out a soft laugh, not of amusement but of pure clarity. "Liam, you were not the man I thought you were, and I am so grateful I found that out before I wasted any more of my life on someone who saw me as disposable. But I want you to know, I forgive you, not for you, but for me. I refuse to carry the weight of your betrayal into my new life. So in a way, thank you for setting me free." After I hung up, a profound sense of closure washed over me. The anger and grief that had fueled me were gone, their purpose served. Looking back on the past year, I'm amazed at the transformation. The betrayal that felt like the end of the world was actually the catalyst for a better one. My illness revealed who truly loved me, and Liam's actions freed me from a marriage that was more performance than partnership. The scars are still there, both physical and emotional, but scars are proof of healing. They tell a story not just of being wounded, but of surviving. Have you ever had a betrayal in your life that ended up leading to a positive change? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Sometimes our most painful moments become our greatest teachers. If my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys of resilience and transformation. And always remember, what feels like an ending might just be the beginning of something more beautiful and authentic than you ever could have imagined. Thank you for listening. End of story.